On the record, in the matter of the petition for early termination of probation of Danielle Marie Everly, being heard before the Board of Behavioral Sciences. It is September 11, 2020 at 12:47 p.m. My name is Sean Gavin. I'm the Administrative Law Judge assigned to preside over this matter. It is board case number 200-2017-001-384, and it is OAH case number 2020-080669. Can I take the appearances of the parties, starting with counsel?
Good afternoon. This is Patricia Heim, Deputy Attorney General, appearing on behalf of the people of the state of California, pursuant to Government Code Section 11522.
Thank you. And Ms. Everly, you are appearing today by video conference without the assistance of counsel. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. I'd also like to establish a quorum. So let me just do a brief roll call of our board members. Mr. Disvasti?
I'm here.
Mr. Ehrlich?
Here.
Ms. Friedman?
Here.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Sobek?
Present.
Ms. Strack?
Here.
And Ms. Wong?
Here.
All right, it's been established that these members constitute a quorum of the board. Ms. Everly explained in our previous petitions and also off the record here today, this hearing will proceed as follows. First, Ms. Heim will present the petition packet and give a brief overview of the contents of the petition to orient the board. Once she's done that, we'll turn to you to present your evidence. You can testify on your own behalf, you can call third-party witnesses, or you can introduce additional documents. Once you've testified, Ms. Heim will then have a chance to cross-examine you, as will each member of the board. When you testify, you are not required to ask yourself questions. Instead, you can testify in the narrative format, which means you'll simply explain in your own words why you think the board should grant this petition. At the conclusion of the evidence, we'll then have closing arguments where the parties will have an opportunity to briefly summarize what the evidence was and suggest what outcome they think should happen as a result. Do you have any questions about the procedure before we begin?
Not at this time. I'm just going to read an opening statement, so that will happen at the beginning when I go.
Yes.
Okay.
And when you do that, please ensure that you speak at a pace and volume that the court reporter can follow.
Yes, I will. Thank you.
All right. With that, then, Ms. Heim, when you're ready.
Thank you. We are here today for the petition for early termination of probation of Danielle Marie Everly. And I would like to mark for identification and offer into evidence the following as Exhibit 1. The packet includes the petition for early termination of probation dated May 4th, 2020, and it has the attachments including petitioner's typewritten responses to questions 10, 11, 12, and 13, dated May 1st, 2020. Petitioner's letters of recommendation, including a letter dated May 5th, 2020 from Cory Broche, spelled first word C-O-R-Y, last name B-R-O-S-C-H, M.S. LMFT, and the Vice President and Clinical Director of Phoenix House of California. There's a letter dated May 1st, 2020 from Amber Hamilton, first name A-M-B-E-R, last name H-A-M-I-L-T-O-N, M.S. LMFT, Clinical Supervisor of Phoenix House. Letter dated April 19th, 2020 from Blanca Raj, first name B-L-A-N-C-A, last name R-A-G-G-E. Letter dated April 10th, 2020 from Carrie Anthony, first name K-E-R-R-Y, last name A-N-T-H-O-N-Y, AA sponsor. This is followed by a letter dated August 19th, 2020 from C.C. Adams, first name C-E-C-I, last name Addams, LMFT, Center for New Directions. There's an undated letter from Shannon Katoza, spelled first name Shannon, last name Catozza. And there is a letter dated August 19th, 2020 from Anthony Duarte. And forgive me, I may have omitted the H. The first name is ANT, and it may have an H, ONY. Last name DUARTE. There is a copy of the final decision and order effective October 13th, 2017, placing petitioner on probation. Also included is a copy of the October 13th, 2017 stipulated settlement and disciplinary order, which granted petitioner's registration as a marriage and family therapist intern, which was immediately revoked, stayed, and placed on probation for 5 years. Included with this is the statement of issues number 200-2017-001384, dated July 28th, 2017. There is a notice of hearing to petitioner dated August 17th, 2020, and the license history certification for petitioner for her associate marriage and family therapist registration number AMFT 102573 and licensed marriage and family therapist license number LMFT 116445. This was issued on November 15th, 2019. And petitioner's LMFT license number 116445 will expire on November 30th, 2021, unless renewed. At this time, I would offer this packet into evidence as Exhibit 1.
Ms. Everly, do you object?
No.
Exhibit 1 is admitted without objection.
Thank you. At this time, I will read a brief summary of petitioner's discipline history with the board and her probation compliance. Petitioner was issued associate marriage and family therapist intern registration on or about October 12th, 2017. This registration was in full force and effect and canceled on November 15th, 2019, when petitioner was issued licensed marriage and family therapist license 116445. The license is current and will expire on November 30th, 2021, unless renewed. On December 9th, 2013, petitioner was convicted of disturbing the peace. On May 13th, 2010, Ms. Everly was convicted of disturbing the peace. On July 27th, 2009, petitioner was convicted for violating a restraining order. On July 11th, 2005, Ms. Everly was convicted of a DUI. A statement of issues was filed on July 28th, 2017, and the board placed petitioner on probation for 5 years with optional terms and standard terms and conditions effective October 13th, 2017. Petitioner held her probation during the period of January 25th, 2018 through April 10th of 2018. On April 9th, 2019, petitioner was granted a modification of probation by the board. She was required to attend therapy twice per month, attend a dependency support group once per month, and her biological fluid testing was reduced to no more than 1 time per month. Petitioner is now requesting early termination of probation. She is not represented today by an attorney. She completed her psychological evaluation on December 12th of 2017. This evaluation is not included in the petition packet. She's
What was the date, Ms. Hines? I'm sorry to interrupt. I missed the date.
December 12th, 2017.
Thank you. Pardon me, my interruption.
She's fully compliant in the dependency support program requirement. She completed her relapse prevention program on May 8th, 2018. The education requirement was completed January 11th, 2018. And she's fully compliant with the condition that she abstain from controlled substances and alcohol and submit to random drug testing. She's also fully compliant with all standard terms and conditions, including quarterly reports and paying her reimbursement costs. Because the burden is on petitioner to show that that early termination is warranted, I reserve the right to question her following her statement. Thank you. I have nothing further.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hine. Ms. Everly, that takes us then to you. If you'd like to testify on your own behalf, I'll have you raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you'll give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, you may explain in your own words why you believe the board should grant this petition.
Okay, I don't want to reiterate what the petition request was because I know you all have that. So I just wrote a statement just to kind of put it all out there, if that's okay to read that now.
Yes, you may, but as I said, just make sure you keep your pace slow.
I know, and I do talk fast, so just tell me to slow down if I start talking fast.
Okay, slow down.
Yeah. Okay. First of all, I would like to thank the board members for the opportunity to present my case here today as I request termination of my probation. I wanted to just take a few minutes to share some points that I feel are important for my case, which I think were lost or forgotten during my last hearing. I will spare all the details of probation as I know we are all familiar with that information. At this time, I feel that it would be fair and justified to terminate probation. Throughout the many challenges I have faced during probation, I have remained 100% compliant with all of the terms. Furthermore, and most importantly, in my opinion, I have continued to remain committed to my long-term recovery and personal growth. I am also now licensed, and being on probation has been a huge barrier in my professional development. The experience of probation has furthered my commitment to and respect for my career and licensure. I understand the purpose and the importance of ensuring the safety of the public that seek services from clinicians who are licensed by the BBS. Specifically when it comes to clinicians with a criminal history. I believe a vetting process is important to make a fair and ethical determination on who is safe to practice. In 2017, at the beginning of my probation term, I was required to undergo a psychological evaluation. In this report completed in December 2017, the evaluator specifically states, I see no evidence to indicate that Ms. Everly would be unable to safely function as a clinician. He goes on to state that I am free of any symptoms of a major mental disorder, including anxiety and depression, and that I appear to be in complete remission from alcoholism. I mention this because this was and still remains true. I have never felt that I was unfit to practice safely. Since graduating with my master's, I have worked at several substance abuse treatment centers in various clinical roles. I believe that my past gives me the unique ability to not only understand addiction from a clinical lens, but also on a personal level. My recovery has never been contingent on my probation terms or any other person, place, or thing. My decision to get sober in 2014 was mine and mine alone. I have remained committed to my recovery long before and throughout my interactions with BBS. Further, I have continued with therapy as required by the BBS since my previous hearing, where I had requested to terminate therapy, which was also the recommendation made by my therapist at that time, as she felt there was no clinical relevance for therapy and that my recovery was not contingent on therapy. I have no problem with seeking out therapy when I feel that it is necessary. This is evident as I sought therapy in 2006 for postpartum depression, later for marital issues, and again when I was newly sober and attending graduate school. I also attended co-parenting therapy after getting sober with my ex-husband for over 18 months in order to improve our relationship and communication so that we could be the best parents to our son. Responses related to my addiction were too simple, and that there is usually other underlying issues. Now that I have had time to reflect on that hearing, I see how I didn't clarify enough regarding my recovery process and the gained insight I have as a result. Childhood filled with neighborhood block parties, lots of friends, and holiday traditions. Unfortunately, I cannot state that there were any major revelations made regarding underlying specific issues or repressed trauma. That just isn't my story, and I would be lying if I sat here saying that. My recovery for me is based on transparency, honesty, and integrity. That is how I live my life and how I plan to present myself today. I have made a commitment to myself since getting sober to be unapologetically honest in my recovery. I have overcome many obstacles since getting sober, and I have made amends to those I hurt during my addiction and repaired relationships with loved ones, and that's something I am forever grateful for. Throughout my almost 7 years in recovery, countless 12-step meetings, as well as working with hundreds of people struggling with addiction, one thing I know is that addiction does not discriminate. Addiction does not care if you are rich or poor. Addiction does not care how smart you are or how talented you may be. Addiction wants to rob you of all of your happiness. And that is what happened for me. Luckily, I found my way back and put the pieces of my life back together from the many supports I have in my life. My family, my recovery family, and my sheer determination. I bring this up because I think that I don't fit the criteria that most are expecting when they think of addiction. I had a great upbringing and I do not have any unresolved trauma or other issues often seen with addiction. I also am not an overly emotional person that needs to stop and process everything from my past. I feel that I have spent more than enough time processing and looking into my addiction and its causes. People who know me will say that I am someone with grit and persistency. These traits, I believe, were inherited from my amazing grandfather who came from nothing and truly lived the American dream. He encouraged all of his descendants to never stop dreaming and set an incredible example for all of us. This to me meant to pursue my passion and to never give up on myself, my goals, and living my truth. I feel completely confident in my ability to maintain sobriety. I work daily in the field of addiction, and some of my closest friends. I attend sober retreats and AA meetings consistently. I have also had many setbacks and challenges in my personal life since getting sober, and not once did I feel that alcohol was the solution to those problems. I hope that this makes sense and that I can put this probation chapter of my life behind me as I continue to move forward in my professional and personal life. And that's it.
All right, thank you for that, Ms. Everly. Is there anything else that you would like to add in addition to having read that statement?
I don't think so. Just what I read now and then what I put in the original petition application, I believe, I hope that's everything.
Okay. All right, then I'll turn it over to Ms. Heim for cross-examination.
Thank you. Ms. Everly, do you have any current criminal convictions at this time that the board is unaware of?
No, I do not.
Do you have any current criminal or civil charges pending against you in this state or in any other state?
No, I do not.
So you talked a lot about that you don't have what would be termed like a typical reason for an addictive personality. So can you tell me what factors do you believe led to the discipline that you have received by the board?
I believe that my disciplinary action was largely, well, the entire reasons for those convictions were all alcohol related. A lot of those things, all of them wouldn't have happened if I hadn't drank alcohol. And all those behaviors and decisions, I like the following Friday or Saturday, I went to a meeting and met her and was introduced to her, and she became my sponsor from that point on.
Thank you. And how often do you talk with her?
At this point, like one meetings online.
Thank you. So if you were, if your probation was terminated early, would you return to drinking?
Never.
Do you think at this point you have an issue with drug or alcohol abuse?
Actively, no. I have no concerns.
Do you consider yourself an alcoholic?
Yes.
So at this point, can you tell me about the coping skills that you use? There are so many stresses right now in life. What right now are you using as your coping mechanisms?
Right now, I mean, I'm doing the Zoom 12-step meetings. I do the Monday meeting, which started, that was canceled for a long time, and it came back about maybe 7-8 weeks ago. We started going in person again. I mean, my closest friends, someone who wrote letters that you have there, Blanca, she's sober. I met her. She got sober maybe 4 months before I did. So we've kind of been on this journey together, and we've become really close friends. We're actually going away together this weekend to celebrate my 40th birthday. So yeah. And my other sober friends coming. I mean, I just have a lot. My closest friends are my sober friends. I have other friends who drink and don't have a problem with it, but the people I'm closest to are sober. And my family. That's a huge support. And then, so they're there. I live with my mom and my 14-year-old son. So we're all at home, working from home and going to school from home, and it gets fun sometimes. But I'm really grateful that I have such an amazing supportive family. And I mean, as far as specific coping skills, I mean, for me, I think one of the most important things, especially for long-term recovery at this phase that I'm in, is the connection to healthy supports. I think in the beginning, it's important to learn to fight triggers and avoid high-risk situations and all that. But I'm at the point now where, I mean, I've been, in almost 7 years, I've been to weddings and dinners and holiday parties, and I've had stresses and had to have surgery during COVID, and my mom broke her hip during COVID, and there's been a lot of stressful things that have happened on top of just the, COVID situation itself. And never was it even an option or a worry or a concern about drinking. I know that it's always there, and I know that it always will be there. It's just not something that ever serves. When I did get sober in 2014, I was ready. I did it. I wanted it. I went to meetings. I reached out for help. I got a sponsor and have continued on that path ever since.
Ms. Everly, please just slow down a little bit.
Sorry, I know.
So Ms. Everly, do you feel like there's anything specific that you can talk to the board about in terms of like what you might have learned from being on probation?
From being on probation, I learned, well, it's made me kind of what I stated in the letter, really, really value my ability to practice, my ability to be a therapist. I really respect that now. And what I've learned is also a lot of humility and persistence and, patience, honestly, a lot of patience. And it's actually like, because, that stipulated settlement is online and available, and I want to hide it. It's actually like kind of forced me to embrace my recovery a little bit more openly than I did at first. You know, I didn't really post about my recovery or anything on social media the first few years. I didn't, you know, I thought people would judge me or think of me differently. So I was kind of, I mean, everyone around me in my personal life knew I was sober, but I didn't speak about it a lot online or anything like that. But being put on probation and having to get comfortable with that report and present it to employers and talk about difficult things, actually kind of, you know, now it's very comfortable for me. I ended up, during that early process of probation, I went to court as well and had my record expunged, and I posted about it and I explained my history, and I actually got a lot of positive, supportive feedback, which felt good. You know, I was nervous posting that, but it actually made me more comfortable in my own skin and, you know, talking about the reality of addiction.
Thank you. Thank you. So therapy was a condition of your probation, is that right?
Correct.
So once, if you are granted early termination, would you continue with therapy after?
I've built such a relationship with this therapist that I would probably continue like a check-in thing here and there with her, just, you know, because we've had such a history now. But I don't believe I would need continual twice a month structured therapy.
Thank you. At this time, I have nothing further.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Heim. Turning then to the board members, Mr. Desposti, any questions for this petitioner?
Well, I did have some, but Ms. Heim really took all our, I'm really glad actually a lot of the questions I had have been addressed already. So Ms. Everly, thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate your honesty. I was a little bit, I was a little bit taken at the beginning when you made that little statement in regards that also Ms. Heim kind of like brought back to you in regards to the expectation of the typical dynamics of addiction, more or less. And because sometimes I think one process of recovery also has to do to understand, and we do see it, that really could assume any phase and any dynamics and any background, right? Sometimes that's the difficulty of it, because sometimes people expect addiction to show up in a certain terms and ways when it might surprise us and come out, you know, on the other way completely different. So but then you went back and you explained what that really meant for you, so it made me feel a little bit better. Overall, what is your relationship? You disclose a lot about your internal journey, and again, to me it's really important also to see your work towards the outside world in relations to the clients you're serving, and how this has changed that relationship for you prior to your to this experience in relations to your work with the clients that you're you know, helping out.
I just want to clarify, are you asking how my addiction has helped or how the probation has helped?
A combination of both, whatever you think it comes first. Yes, thank you.
I don't know how much the probation itself has helped. I mean, to be totally transparent, it's given me further insight into my client struggles when they have difficulty with their criminal history and they're looking for work, or, you know, they're trying to find jobs and they can't get jobs. It's, I mean, I don't tell them about my probation or anything, but I feel like I can empathize with them, and I understand that struggle, not to their level or same as them, but I have a better understanding of that and appreciation for their struggle and for the work they do to try to continue to move forward. And it helps me to be motivated to continue to motivate them.
Okay. Okay.
And as far as the addiction piece, I mean, that just in general, you know, my addiction is what it is. And, you know, I'm actually very open about it now. And I did, you know, I posted about it. I've talked about it, really far lengths, with drinking. And, you know, I'm grateful today to be sober, to have been able to go back to grad school. I mean, those are things I thought like, oh, I'm never going to do it. It's too late for me, all these excuses you tell yourself. And now I use that experience of being able to get sober. And I totally understand that other people have way bigger hurdles and way worse upbringings and circumstances stacked against them. So I can acknowledge that I at least had a lot of things that some people don't have, like family support and like people pushing me when I was first getting sober. So, I know that I have that, but I also know that it really was an inside job. I mean, it was, it was my work and my dedication to that life that came with recovery. And that's something I am always grateful for. And I always try to cultivate that with clients and their journey when they're struggling in the beginning and, going through those, conflicting feelings about it and feeling like they can't stay sober. I think it helps me to better understand and support them.
Okay. I appreciate your answer. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. I don't have any further question, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Disposky. Mr. Ehrlich, any questions?
Yes, just a couple. Hello, Ms. Everly. How are you?
Hi.
So I was wondering if you can explain maybe why you're specifically seeking termination of probation early.
I believe that probation and all of that stuff is to ensure that someone's safe to practice. I mean, that's the idea, at least as far as I understand, is to the safety of the public. And I feel like I've been practicing now for, I know it was told there for a minute, but, since graduating, from grad school, like almost 4 years off and on there. But my safety and fitness to practice has never been questioned by any of my employers, not by the psychiatric or the psychological evaluator that was selected by BBS, not by my therapist. So I don't feel that there is any concern as far as my fitness and safety to practice. So I think keeping probation on even, and I think I've, proven myself by remaining committed to this probation. I mean, I've had to attend AA meetings on a cruise ship. I've had to test on vacation. I've made it work. I've gotten creative and made it work. And even when it was very challenging and inconvenient, but I did that because I am committed to my career and to my, my continued growth in this field and helping people.
Okay, understandable. I was also wondering if you're comfortable with maybe touching on, I know there were I believe four convictions.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering if you're comfortable with maybe touching on maybe what was going on in your life or circumstances maybe surrounding those convictions or arrests, and maybe why those circumstances don't exist now, or maybe why they won't exist in the future, something along those lines.
Yeah. Basically, I'm sober, so I don't drink and drive, and I don't, act erratic and get in arguments with people and misinterpret things and get upset. I've worked as well. When I first got sober, I was in therapy for about 17, 18 months or so during grad school before any BBS therapy. It was a different therapist. She had submitted a letter, the previous therapist, at my first hearing. So I worked through, and that was in earlier stages of my recovery. I worked through a lot of the issues that led to a lot of the problems that existed in my life during that time. I worked through those in recovery, not only in therapy with that therapist, but also through the 12-step program where my sponsor, I wish she could be on the Zoom right now. She's very rigorous. She doesn't mess around. She doesn't let you give excuses, and she really held me accountable. And I worked those steps. I had to write and talk about and process difficult things, and I had to make amends to people, which was, which is hard sometimes. So, I think it created a lot of humility and respect for where I'm at now. And there's no going back to any of that stuff that's related to the criminal history. And I hate that it's criminal history, but I know it's there and it's fine. But that behavior was all related to being an alcoholic. And there were different things that led to that. But, you know, that behavior doesn't happen anymore because I'm sober and because I live
Well,
my
right,
life
right.
differently.
And that's what I was referring to, not the fact that you were convicted or there's a criminal case, but there's obviously reasons that that conduct occurred.
Right.
And I think you touched on that in your answer. So that's really all the questions I have, but thank you for coming and sharing today.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ehrlich. Ms. Friedman, any questions?
Yes, I have one question. Hi, Miss Everly. I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad to hear that you're so upfront and talking about everything that's gone on in your life. But one of the things that you mentioned in your application was that the probation, that one of your reasons for wanting to end your probation is that probation was preventing you from getting certain positions, denied certain position. Have you actually applied for positions where they said, well, sorry, you were on probation and come back again?
Yes, I did. I applied for a position that I was well qualified for. And they offered the position, but then they, when they found out I was on probation, they said, oh no, when someone's on probation, we have to, and I don't know this process, but apparently they have to put in like a separate request, and with the what they say it was the you know, when you do your life scan, they said they had to do like a special request to make an exception, and I guess it's a lengthy process, and they said we need someone to start sooner than that, and so we can't really, you know, because of your probation, it's going to take much longer to get you vetted with our company, so we can't hire you. So that was very disappointing.
Has there been more than one example of that in your life?
There was one other interviews I had gone on where I made it to like the third interview. And at that point, and I know it's like this weird thing, like California can't ask you legally anymore if you've been convicted of a crime until they offer a position, but they can ask you if your license is in good standing. So as soon as they ask that, you're kind of, your hands are tied. And not only that, but many of the interviews I've been on, they tell me that some of them have told me, like, we saw that you're on probation. It's not a deal breaker, you know, but we're still interviewing. And then I just never hear back. And you know, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what happened there. So it's one of those things where it sucks because I can't move forward sometimes. And I've now been reluctant to even continue trying until this is over because I feel like it's just burning bridges. And, you know, most places that are interviewing people for this position, they will run their name on BBS Breeze just to make sure their license is active. And as soon as they see that, they see probation right under my name, they know immediately. And I feel like that just prevents, you know, that interview process from going further.
That is very, very disappointing. I can understand, incredibly so. When that happens, do you sometimes feel like, oh, this isn't worth it, I'm gonna just go have a drink?
No, because then that would never happen. Then I would never get off probation, or you guys would just, you know, throw my license away completely. But no, that's never, ever been a thought or a trigger or even close to that.
That's good to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you.
That's all I have, Judge.
Thank you, Ms. Friedman. Mr. Jones, any questions?
No, not at this time.
Mr. Sovek?
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Everly, I do have a question for you. What do you think the board missed the last time you came up?
I don't know if it's so much the board missed it. I feel like it, you know, you're kind of on the spot. I didn't know what to expect as far as questions, obviously. So I think going back and, you know, looking at that hearing after I got home and was able to watch it on YouTube, you know, I was kind of caught off guard by some questions as far as like relating to gaining further insight, going deeper in therapy, because for me, I feel like I had done so much of that, but I realized watching the hearing, maybe the way I present things, which I just am a very direct, like to the point person, like, and I know sometimes that's perceived differently by people who aren't like that, but that's just how I talk. And I didn't mean to make it sound so superficial. It was a very personal and very like meaningful process getting sober, and looking back at the history and what led to that, and moving forward continually while working through all of that. And I think what was missed was presenting that or responding to the question with that information as meaty as the board probably wanted it.
Okay. And what would you say are the biggest points of growth for you between your last petition and this petition?
In therapy specifically, we've worked a lot on like the meaning of family and family dynamics. My grandfather passed away a long time ago, and in 2008, but he was sort of the pillar of our family. And when he passed away, everything changed in our family. And I think his legacy and his hope, for the family, sort of like learning how to carry that on. And then my son wrote a paper recently about him, and it was really nice and special to see that. And I think, as far as personal growth and development, since the last hearing has been more on, sort of processing what family means and the importance of that and carrying that forward, and that, really being an example of what I was taught growing up.
Okay.
And then
more. Go ahead.
Well, no, then, yeah, I mean, that's as far as with therapy, but I think other things, like I get along with my ex-husband. I mean, he wrote a letter that's in there, and, that has also even improved more as of the last, 6 months or so, especially with COVID, because, it's like, are we really going to follow this custody order and drive back and forth, So we kind of switch things to, week on, week off. It just makes sense being home all day. So we've been both really flexible with that. Our son, my ex is our son's baseball coach and manager. He manages a travel ball team, and there's no sports, and my son started high school this year, and there's been no tryouts. It's really been a difficult time for our son and for all kids probably who, want to get on a sports team. So, my ex has kept our travel ball team going, and we've gone on travel ball trips together. And, he has a little 6-year-old boy. I think he's on the picture in the letter. And, he's always so cute and entertaining, and I just love talking with him and joking with him at the games. And so it's been really nice to have that relationship continue to improve, and where I can, even when I go now, it's so funny. Every time I go to pick up my son, my 14-year-old, my ex's 6-year-old is the only one out there ready usually. And he comes running up to my car and tells me a little story about his day. And it's just nice. It's nice to be able to interact like that and to continue to cultivate this healthy co-parenting relationship, which is something that wouldn't have happened if I didn't get sober.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Sovik. Ms. Strack, any questions?
Just a quick one. Thanks for being here. I just kind of wanted to follow up on some of the other line of questioning that the board members, some other board members have done about sort of the factors that kind of led you to addiction and sort of what's different now. And I just kind of want to give you an opportunity if there's anything else there that you haven't shared yet. I just wanted to kind of give you that opportunity to kind of circle back with that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think, so why I brought that up in the beginning was because that the questions around that topic last time kind of threw me off. And I think, like I said earlier, a little bit, like going back and watching that hearing made me realize I didn't really present it. And then I was kind of caught off guard, and I feel like I responded to one of the questions like out in left field, totally off topic. And I was just like, watching it. And I was like, okay, I need to be more prepared this time and make sure I'm really, getting my point across, because that's why I'm here. But you get nervous in the moment, and then you get sidetracked by another question, and you kind of forget to go back to the point that you had. So I think with the question you're asking, really, I don't have trauma. There was no no major trauma. I call it little T trauma. Like, my parents divorced. I mean, that's like 60% of households now, I think, and stuff like that. But none of it was traumatic. They got along. I never saw them fighting. Everyone, my family was all real supportive, and we got together for holidays. We did everything normal. We took trips. So when I say that it didn't fit like the criteria for what you think of with addiction, I say that from an outside perspective sometimes, because I've gotten a lot of feedback in my personal life, even like, oh, I never knew you were an alcoholic. And it's funny because they just, I guess maybe I was good at hiding it or keeping the outside looking good. But, that conceptualization by other people, I think maybe is what I was thinking. The board is not, they're thinking I'm lying or, hiding something, when that's not true. I'm very open about my recovery now. And I'm very, I like to share, I like to help other people. That's why I work in this field. And, there was no trauma or anything like that, but I think it was my ex and I went through a really ugly divorce. I mean, the fact that we can coexist and get along and eat meals together now is just a miracle. And, we went through an ugly divorce, and it was the recession. My grandpa died that same year too, in 2008. And, which changed, I don't want to get into the details, but it changed a lot of dynamics in our family. And so it was like compounded stress of multiple things drastically changing in my life. Having to share custody of a, not even 3-year-old was very challenging. It was very hard for me to have to share my son, and let go of that control that you want to have as a mom to protect and make sure things are okay. And then knowing he's over there, and then I'm not getting along with my ex. So he's not texting me or letting me know how my son's doing. And I'm sitting there, at home drinking, thinking about the safety of my kid, and they just keep drinking because you don't want to think about it. So, it was multiple things in my personal life that led up to the alcoholism. And I think, I just wanted to clarify that, because I think it maybe came across like, oh no, I just became an alcoholic and now I'm sober. Okay. And that's not how it was, but it wasn't the typical story that I think I hear a lot from my work in addiction treatment, and, from being in 12-step meetings. A lot of people do identify from when they first drank or they first used drugs that they knew they were an addict or an alcoholic. And that wasn't my experience. I drank like senior year in high school, and kind of just really sporadic at parties. And I was always like the nervous one who didn't want to get in trouble. So I didn't really relate to that. And that is what prevented me from getting sober at first, because I would go to these meetings and I would hear these stories, and I would think, oh, maybe I'm not an alcoholic. Like, maybe you have to like be an alcoholic with your first drink. And I'm not, because that wasn't my story for 10 years of drinking. So, through that process, through my own process, and through seeing clients with similar stories and seeing other people in 12-step meetings with similar stories, not everyone has the same story. Not everyone has not everyone that has severe trauma becomes an addict or alcoholic, and not everyone that has great upbringings avoids addiction. So it goes both ways, and it's really given me a profound respect for addiction and for my recovery, and for people that come from all walks of life who struggle with the same things.
Ms. Everly, I don't know how much more testimony is left, but for the balance of it, can you please slow down a bit?
Sorry, yes.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you so much. I think you being really open and vulnerable with your answer there was really helpful for me and insightful for me, because I wasn't on the board when you were here last time. So I appreciate that. Thank you. And you could tell you really light up when you talk about your son. So
thank you.
Also.
All right, thank you, Ms. Strack. That leaves then Ms. Wong.
Hi. So I was there last time. And I want to welcome you back. And And so I appreciate, Ms. Strack's question, because I think, that is, to me, it's not about the right or wrong answer. We really don't look at, that there is kind of like a model probationer. We really want to hear from your own words, what the journey that you have been through. And so I really like the part that, when you start talking about your family and, that I totally agree, Ms. Strack's impression that you lighten up. And I think that that's, the sort of the more genuine self is what we're trying to look for. So hopefully that helps you, understand where we're coming from. So I do want to, confirm some of my impression because I don't want to assume. And so, I feel a little, I feel there's some sort of disconnection here, about your testimony and, and kind of your, and basically, what I observe. So put it this way. So, so you talk about humility, and you talk about, that, that's something that, you practice and I'm glad you gave an explanation about, I'm not a typical alcoholic. And so, and yet, when I'm hearing how you present yourself, it seems to me that, the process of going through this, the disciplinary, the discipline for the board, still, carry a big weight on you. And so, okay, so humility, how you, deal with the board process. And it seems to me that, that you view, yes, you said you understand, the reason, of the boards, for the discipline, for the public act, public protection. But I'm also keep hearing that, but I'm not like them. You should not, it feels to me that you're sending a message that, I should not even be started, as a, as a probationer. So help me understand that, that your, your attitude, about the discipline, and, we know that it's relating to the alcoholism, but how did you mitigate that? And how do you actually apply your humility, to overcome this very stressful, last almost 3 years?
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a couple of things there that you mentioned. I don't think I think of myself like, I'm not like them. I mean, I'm very involved in AA. I didn't, my point is I didn't start going because the board told me to go. I had already established all of that and been on retreats and developed that life. So, and I think it's different for everyone, but I think because I had already gone through all those struggles of getting sober, getting back into grad school, working my 12 steps, doing all of that, having this huge community around me, and then going through the BBS application process. And there was an issue there with the, how my application was reviewed and stuff was lost, but that's another issue. Kind of been giving the impression that you have nothing to worry about. And then all of a sudden, like, denied, got to do this appeal and this whole thing. It felt like a punitive process after I felt like I had done almost 4 years by the time I got put on probation of all this work, before BBS. It's not like I was, and no offense to anyone who's already licensed and then gets put on probation, but I felt like the whole reason I pursued the degree and went to school was because I got sober and, some other challenges in earlier life and wanted to help people. So that's where I think it felt like a little punitive at first to be having this setback. So, and I think it doesn't need to be one or the other. I think it can be both. I can feel humble and grateful for the life I have now and still be challenged and set back by the probation terms. I mean, it is what it is. When you hand someone that report with all those, lovely police reports that are in there that make me look like a threat, people don't want to hire you. I mean, I get it. My therapist and I joke about it now all the time. She's like, oh man, when I read that report, I was like, I'll meet with this client one time. And she's like, and then I met with you and you're totally fine. Like, we have this great, client therapist relationship now. So I don't think it's like, I'm not humble because I feel like I'm held down by the probation terms. I think I can be both. I can be humble in my recovery and in the progress I've made and the life I'm living now, and also feel like, yes, there is this weight here, and I know it's there I've been on interviews and they've told me that, and and there's no reason why I wouldn't be able to get certain positions that I'm qualified for after several interviews. And, I know it's the probation. So that is a barrier for me advancing my career. And it's just that simple. I don't really have a better answer to that.
Yes, I hear you, because, that again, my question really originally is to help, help us to help me especially, to deal with that disconnection. And I'm so glad that, that you embrace both, knowing that, now you're using the humor to tease yourself and as a way to cope with it, and I think it's important that, as a therapist, that, when we make connection with the other people, it's really not about, just, the circumstances. It's really about how you look at that and cope with it. And so I think that's really where I'm coming from, to check in with you, that are you recognize what is going on internally, because if you view that, this is such a big, huge punishment. This is, it is so not fair. I should not even be there. And I think that, that sort of that very rigid thinking, possibly, can really hindrance, how you establish the relationship with your clients. Mm-hmm. And so that itself, it's a pretty important part of the public protection, right? The quality, of the, the services that, how you utilize yourself, how healthy you are,
mm-hmm.
In order to, to protect the public. Yeah.
Right. And I don't believe at all, and all of the various clinical people I've been sent to by BBS seem to have the same similar conclusion that there's any, issue with any way I practice or services I provide at all. I actually get a lot of positive feedback about that. So I don't think the probation in itself has anything to do with how I function as a clinician. I think it's more of a personal struggle of, financially and trying to advance my career. I don't think it goes that deep where it's interfering with my practice as a clinician. And if anything, like I said, I'm a very sarcastic person. I've always kind of joked around about stuff. I think it's healthy to do that as long as you're, not doing it only to avoid any other, deeper processing. But, we do joke. I'm from a family that jokes around all the time. And, it's like you have to laugh about stuff sometimes. You can't just sit there and be dwelling on it. So we joke about it. We joke about some of the stuff that's even mentioned in the police reports that part of it wasn't true. And I'm just like, whatever, it doesn't matter now. It's out there. So we have a good time with it, but then, it's funny and everything, but it's also, holding me back because some people read that and they don't see me, they don't get to know me. They just see that on paper and they just toss it and want to go to the next interview. So that's where I feel like it is a barrier to my career. And that doesn't really have any barrier as far as me moving forward in personal areas or as a clinician, one-on-one with my clients. It's more of a career advancement issue.
Thank you very much. And I appreciate your sarcasm, by the way. That's a good way of coping. Thank you very much. I have no more question, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Ms. Wong. Let me open it now to any other board members who may have follow-up questions. All right, seeing none. Ms. Heim, any follow-up questions?
No, thank you.
Ms. Everly, is there any additional testimony you'd like to offer at this point?
Yeah, I just want to, again, thank you guys for the time today. I appreciate it. I wasn't sure how this was going to happen with COVID, so I'm grateful that a system was put in place to do this, and I don't have to buy a plane ticket this time, so that's nice. But yeah, I just really want to sort of just recapture that, I'm here today to petition, not just because of the cost at this point. The main cost was the first year. So it's not even the cost anymore because I'm getting only tested once per month and, 2 therapy sessions. It's really just, I feel like I have proven myself, and not just by meeting the requirements of probation, because I think a lot of people can do that. I think it's because I've already been committed to my recovery before that, and I've continued to be committed to that. I work in addiction treatment. I'm ready to just move on from this probation phase. and continue to do the things I've been doing for nearly 7 years that have kept me sober. And I feel like I have the ability to do that. There's no one, I don't have concerns about my recovery. I live my life really honest. I'm not for everyone. And that's fine. That's really none of my business. And, I am who I am, and that's my story. And, I could sit here and add to it and try to bulk it up, but I don't lie. That's not my thing. So, I hope that I was able to present, why I'm here and, what I've been through and where I'm at now and where I want to go clearly enough for the board.
All right, thank you for that. Let me just give one final opportunity because there was additional testimony to see whether any board members have additional questions. All right, hearing none. Ms. Heim, would you like to make any closing remarks?
No, thank you.
Ms. Everly, would you like to make any closing remarks?
No, thank you.
All right, in a moment then, I'm going to ask whether the matter is submitted. And by that, I mean, are you satisfied you've had a full opportunity to present all evidence and make all argument on your behalf? Ms. Heim, is the matter submitted?
Yes, submitted.
And Ms. Everly, is the matter submitted?
Yes, submitted.
All right, this matter is submitted. The case is closed and we are off the record.
Thank you, Your Honor. As usual, we are taking a 10 minutes break, maybe 15. We'll do 15. And it's 1:50 right now, so we're going to reconvene at 2:05.
All right, thank you. Ms. Mendoza, I'll get the info from you when you come back from the break.
Max, you have all 7 members and online. And Christina, can you confirm that Bryce is ready to go?
Yeah, let me give him a little message here.
Forgot that
Ready.
last time, but
He's back up.
he's good. All righty, you're good to go, Max.
Okay. Well, welcome back, everyone. We are opening officially the afternoon session of the Board of Behavioral Sciences. Today is September 11 at 2:06 p.m. My name is Posti AMS. I am the chair of Behavioral Sciences, and I'm moving the meeting under Administrative Law Judge, Mr. Gavin.
Good morning. We have good afternoon. We have one more petition to conduct here today. That is for Ms. Lee. Ms. Lee, are you present and can you hear me?
I am. I'm present and I can hear you.
I see you there. Okay, good. Participated, or at least observed, I should say, the previous 4 petitions. Do you feel the need for me to summarize the procedures before we go on the record?
No, thank you.
Okay. Do you have any questions about those procedures?
I do not.
All right. Ms. Heim, are you ready to go on the record?
Yes, I am. Yes, thank you.
And Ms. Mendoza, are you ready to go on the record?
Your Honor.
All right, then we are on the record in the petition for early termination of probation of petitioner Rachel Coe Lee, being heard before the Board of Behavioral Sciences on September 11 at 2:07 p.m. My name is Sean Gavin. I'm the administrative law judge assigned to preside over this matter. This is board case number 200-2014-001-313 and OAH case number 200-080-668. Can I take the appearances of the parties, starting with counsel?
Yes, good afternoon. This is Patricia Heim, Deputy Attorney General, appearing on behalf of the people of the state of California pursuant to Government Code Section 11522.
All right, thank you. And then Ms. Lee, the record should reflect that you are appearing by video conference without the assistance of counsel. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Before we move further, let me just establish a quorum of the board by roll call. Mr. Desposti?
Present.
Mr. Ehrlich?
Present.
Ms. Friedman?
Present.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Sovek?
Here.
Ms. Strack,
Here.
and Ms. Wong.
Here.
All right, and it has been established that these members of the board constitute a quorum. Ms. Lee, prior to going on the record, you observed some previous petition hearings today and also witnessed the instructions for those petition hearings. Let me summarize those procedures now for you, and let's see if you have any questions. The hearing will proceed as follows. Ms. Heim will first present the petition packet and then give a brief summary to the board to orient them as to the nature of the underlying discipline and the contents of your petition. After that, we'll turn to you to present your case. You can testify on your own behalf. You can call third-party witnesses. You can introduce additional documents. When you testify, you can testify in the narrative format, which means you simply explain in your own words why you think the petition should be granted.
Okay.
Once you're done doing that, then I'll give Ms. Heim and each board member an opportunity to cross-examine you. You just answer those questions. Once that's concluded, you can call other witnesses or submit additional documents. When we're done with that, we'll then move to closing argument. The parties are free to summarize at that point what the evidence was and what outcome they think should happen as a result of that evidence. Do you have any questions about any of those hearing procedures?
No.
All right. Ms. Heim, are you ready to present the petition packet?
Yes, I am.
All right.
Thank you. The petition packet contains the following: the petition for early termination of probation for Rachel Coe Lee, dated April 30th, 2020, with attachments including the following: Orange County Superior Court order and minute order in the case People v. Rachel Coe Lee, case number 14HF3011 space M space A, granting petitioners Penal Code section 1203.4 petition and dismissing the matter on December 17th, 2019. Letters of recommendation, including an undated letter from Holly Hahn, PsyD MFT, spelling first name Holly, last name HAN. Letter dated April 5th, 2020, from Gwyneth Kerr Irwin, PhD, PsyD, first name GWYNETH, middle name KERR, last name ERWIN. This letter is providing a comprehensive treatment summary for petitioner, and Ms. Irwin's CV is also attached. Letter dated March 30th, 2020, from Judy Chamberlain, LCSW, PsyD, first name spelled JUDY, last name CHAMBERLIN. Letter dated April 15th, 2020, from Koneep Bumble Ho, first name CO-N capital N GHIEP, quote, Bumble, BUMBLE, end quote, last name Ho, HO. This is the lead pastor of Redemption Point Church. Letter dated March 30th, 2020, from Phil McAllister, MBA, CPA, first name spelled PHIL, last name capital MAC, capital ALLI. Letter dated March 30th, 2020, from Sheila Moetta, first name SHEILA, last name MOWETA, Director of the Volunteer Department of the Los Angeles Mission. Letter dated April 1st, 2020, from Brittany Lee, daughter, first name BRITNEY, last name LEE. Letter dated March 31st, 2020, from Brooke Elizabeth Lee, daughter, first name BROOKE, middle name ELIZABETH, last name LEE. Also included are continuing education certificates of completion that begin on page AGO 026 through AGO 034. Certification of completion of the CARE program, all capital letters, CARE, dated November 6th, 2016. This includes an outline of topics for the 52-week Child Abusers program and an additional copy of the minute order in Orange County Superior Court case number 14HF3011 space capital M space capital A, dismissing petitioner's conviction. This is located on pages AGO 035 through AGO 040. Also included are transcripts from Alliant International University and a copy of petitioner's dissertation entitled The Adoptive Parents' Experiences of Adoption Dissolution. This is from 2017. Also included in the packet is the October 7th, 2016 decision and order adopting petitioner's stipulated settlement and disciplinary order, which revoked petitioner's marriage and family therapist license number LMFT 47836. Following the grant of petitioner's license, the license was immediately revoked, the revocation was stayed, and petitioner was placed on 5 years probation with terms and conditions, including a suspension of 30 days. Attached to the order is a copy of the first amended accusation number 200-2014-001313, dated August 3rd, 2015. This is followed by the notice of hearing to petitioner dated August 18th, 2020, and finally, the license history certification for petitioner for her licensed marriage and family therapist license number LMFT 47836. This license is current and expires on January 31st, 2021, unless renewed. At this time, I would offer this packet into evidence as Exhibit 1.
Ms. Lee, do you object?
I have only one question regarding the page 83. The suite number that states 128 on the document, my suite number is 284. I made that address change and the request was sent approximately September or October of 2017.
I'm sorry, what page?
On page 83 of the petition packet, part 1. On the declaration of service by certified mail and first class.
Okay.
The date of the address that's stated on there says suite 128. Everything is correct, but the suite is not 128, but 284.
Okay. Did you receive the petition by mail?
I have not. I did not receive it. I received everything via email.
Okay. So you have a copy of the petition?
Yes. Yes.
All right. Okay. The record should reflect that the address that you're identifying appears on a declaration of service, which is essentially an administrative document just to keep track of what was sent to you and when it was sent. So that doesn't really constitute an evidentiary objection. Your clarification is noted for the record. Any other objections to Exhibit 1?
No.
Okay, Exhibit 1 is admitted over that objection. Thank you for that. Ms. Heim, would you like to orient the board now?
Yes, thank you.
All right.
The following is the disciplinary history for petitioner. Petitioner was issued licensed marriage and family therapist license number LMFT 47836 on November 10th, 2009. Setting precedent to the first amended accusation and subsequent causes for discipline, it was factually alleged that petitioner was required by statute to complete training in child abuse assessment and reporting, was required by statute to report all known or suspected child neglect or abuse, and had specialized knowledge and experience in counseling adopted children and their families regarding assimilating the adopted child into the family environment. Moreover, petitioner's educational background includes a doctorate of psychology, marriage and family therapy from the California School of Professional Psychology in 2009, graduate internship in psychotherapy from the University of Chicago, Master of Arts, clinical psychology and educational counseling in 1997, Master of Arts, cognitive psychology in 1995, and Bachelor of Arts, psychology and neuroscience in 1994. Petitioner subjected her license to disciplinary action due to her April 30th, 2015 criminal conviction for willful harm, injury, or endangerment of a child and constituted general unprofessional conduct that was substantially related to the qualifications, functions, or duties of a licensed practitioner. The facts that led up to the conviction and unprofessional conduct are as follows. In June 2014, petitioner lived at home with her husband and their 3 children, 2 biological daughters and 1 adopted son. The adopted son was 8 years old at the time and had been adopted from an orphanage in Korea on or about June 11, 2011, when he was 5 years old. The first amended accusation states that petitioner had difficulty coping with the adopted son's behavioral issues and regularly locked the son inside his bedroom in response to behavioral issues. The son did not have access to a toilet while locked in his bedroom, and petitioner placed a small pot in the corner of the room and instructed him to use it as a toilet whenever he was locked inside the room, even though it was too small for the boy to sit on. Additionally, the boy did not have access to food or water when locked in the bedroom other than what petitioner placed inside before she locked the door, and the child did not have access to a telephone, computer, or any other means of communication in case of emergency. In or about October 2011, when the child was approximately 5 years old, petitioner alleged that in the middle of the night, on more than one occasion, she observed the boy holding his pillow, standing inside his sister's bedroom and watching his sister sleep in their bed. Based on her observations, petitioner concluded there was a risk that the son, aged 5, may harm his sisters, who at that time were 10 and 13 years old, respectively. The first amended accusation states that petitioner did not seek professional counseling, therapy, or assistance for the boy in response to her conclusion that he may harm his sisters while they slept, and instead determined that the alleged conduct required he be locked inside his bedroom every night from 7 p.m. until 7 a.m., 12 consecutive hours, in order to prevent him from harming his sisters while they slept. The pleading continued to state that during kindergarten and first grade, the boy liked school, was able to make friends, and was very affectionate towards his teachers, and that petitioner sometimes kept him home from school as a form of punishment for his at-home disobedient behavior. Moreover, after the end of first grade, petitioner withdrew the boy from school and started to homeschool him. At the time, petitioner told the school's administrators and teachers that her son had been diagnosed with reactive attachment disorder and that his therapist advised her to withdraw him from school, even though petitioner had never provided a therapist for the boy. No such therapist existed. No diagnosis was provided. Petitioner later lied to investigators when she stated that she withdrew the boy from school due to his aggressive behavior, because it was noted that the boy did not engage in any aggressive behavior at school that was any different from that of any other first grade boy. In or about September 2013, the family dog died, and petitioner alleged that the boy choked and killed the dog. Petitioner did not seek emergency referrals to psychiatric hospitals, longer-term treatment facilities, or any other professional assistance to help treat the boy for what may have caused him to kill the dog, in what petitioner referred to as homicidal tendencies. Petitioner concluded that the killing required the boy to be locked alone inside his bedroom for additional hours every day while she was home, and that the lockup was partly due to petitioner needing a break from parenting the child. All totaled, when added to the nightly lockup, the boy was locked in his bedroom approximately 14 to 16 hours per day. In or about September 2013, petitioner became tired of trying to manage the boy's behavior and no longer wanted him in her home. The first amended accusation states that petitioner used her position as director of adoption at Dillon International Adoption Agency to try to find another family willing to adopt the boy and did not reach out to social services, the city where she resided, or any other assistance groups for help to manage or treat the behavioral issues. It was noted that petitioner also occasionally left the boy home alone and locked inside his bedroom for 2 to 5 hours per day or ran errands, but also locked him inside the bedroom when she was home, but was taking a break from parenting, a total of approximately 14 to 21 hours per day. During the time period, approximately from September 2013 to June 2014, petitioner's primary method of parenting the boy and managing his behavior was to lock him alone inside his bedroom for most of every day and did not seek professional help. The boy's bedroom was on the second story, approximately 14 feet above the ground, and his only means of escape in case of fire or other emergency was to jump out of the second story window. On June 12, 2014, the date of the qualifying event, the boy had been locked in his room from 7 p.m. the prior night to 7 a.m. that morning. He then was locked in his bedroom again at 8 a.m., and petitioner went to work and left the boy alone. Petitioner admitted that her intention was to leave the boy in his room while she worked for 5 hours, returning later at 1 p.m., and had left a sandwich in a plastic bag, an 8-ounce bottle of water, and a small pot to be used as a toilet. On this day, however, the boy threw pillows down to the ground and put on a large winter jacket and jumped, but landed on the grass and started to cry. A neighbor found the boy crying and called the police, and an ambulance was dispatched and took the boy to the hospital where he was later released to Child Protective Services. The boy told investigators that he jumped out of the window because he needed to go to the bathroom and did not want to use the pot because he did not want to make his room smell bad, and that the grass was much harder than it looked. Petitioner was arrested for willful cruelty to a child, possible injury or death, parental failure to provide basic necessities, and false imprisonment, and was transported to jail. She was later charged with felony child endangerment by caretaker under circumstances likely to produce great bodily harm and death, and on April 30th, 2015, was convicted by her guilty plea of willfully causing, permitting, or inflicting physical pain, mental suffering, or endangerment of a child, a misdemeanor. A first amended accusation was filed on August 5th, 2015, and the board adopted the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order, which was immediately revoked, stayed, and placed the petitioner on probation for 5 years with optional and standard terms and conditions, effective October 7th, 2016. There is no history of petitioner tolling her probation. There is no history of a modification of the probation terms. Petitioner's actual suspension was served from October 7th, 2016 through November 5th of 2016. She completed a psychological evaluation on April 10th, 2017. This is not included in the petition packet, but at that evaluation, petitioner was deemed fit to practice independently with safety to the public with no additional recommendations. The psychologist interviewed petitioner in person on February 25th, 2015, and on March 10th, 2015, for a total duration of 5 hours. Several tests were administered, including a mental status examination, the Beck Depression Inventory, the second edition, the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory, second edition, and the Milton Clinical Multi-Axel Inventory. Petitioner is in compliance with her psychotherapy term. She's in compliance with supervised practice. She completed her education in March on the 30th, 2017. Petitioner has complied with the practice restriction of only treating adults over the age of 18. She completed a law and ethics course on June 15th, 2018. She's in compliance with her reimbursement of probation costs for monitoring. She is complying with the cost recovery condition and has an approximate remaining balance of $619.74, which would need to be paid if early termination is granted. She's also in compliance with all standard terms and conditions, including submitting quarterly reports. At this time, I will reserve the right to ask petitioner questions, as it is her burden to show that early termination is warranted. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hine. Ms. Lee, or should I say Dr. Lee, that then takes us to you to present your case. As I said earlier, you may testify on your own behalf, call third-party witnesses, or submit documents. If you'd like to testify on your own behalf, I'll have you raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury that testimony you'll give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. All right. When you are ready, you may proceed with testimony in your own words.
I'm going to go back a bit of my childhood. I grew up in Oklahoma. I immigrated when I was about 5 years old. The area where my parents and myself, my brother and my 3 cousins and my grandmother, my maternal grandmother lived, it was very densely populated at the time with Caucasians, and I was probably one of 3 Asians graduating in a class size of approximately 800. So through that period, I felt very alone. I knew that I needed to somehow pull my family out of poverty and all the constructs of challenges that come with being an immigrant. During that time, when I was approximately 11 years old, I was introduced to an agency called Dillon International Adoption Agency. The founders are Denise and Jerry Dillon, who are still my mentors and who are very supportive and loving towards me to this day. I and my family began to volunteer during the summer heritage camp, where there are these Korean adopted children that are placed in homes that would come during these summers from different areas, mostly around the middle America, where it's Missouri, Arkansas, Texas, and of course within Oklahoma. And I began my adoption story during that period, where I was first then introduced to what I would call my first introduction of growing your family through adoption and understanding the challenges that come with it. And of all the people from the time that I was 11, I should know the challenges, and I should know what I needed to be, and how I needed to handle myself.
Let me just interrupt, Dr. Lee. This is ALJ Gavin.
Yeah.
We don't have any other matters on the calendar, any other petition matters on the calendar today.
Okay.
We're in no rush to conclude the testimony, so you can feel free to take your time and compose yourself and testify when you're ready. And if you do need a break, please just let us know and we can take one.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So with that said, there's nothing that I can say or do to take back what all Ms. Heim had stated on the report. All I can tell you is that I went to a therapist for him. I had Dillon International have the support system, the social worker. I was undergoing non-Hodgkin's lymphoma at the same time. I was diagnosed in February of 2014. By the time June hit, I had 29 radiation therapy and going towards T-cell harvest treatment, which was scheduled to be end of June, beginning of July, depending on my immune system. On June 13th, my parents, who still reside in Oklahoma, were going to be coming. They had airline tickets to come to California to help out. My husband at the time was in New Zealand working with a non-profit, non-government organization of World Vision, so he was away. My two biological daughters were in their respective schools. One was in middle school, Brittany was in middle school, and the older one was in high school, the first year of her freshman year of high school. And a lot is confused, and I don't recall clear memories of that period and the choices that I've made, and ultimately going through this rehabilitation program. I can only say to you that that period was a very dark period, and it was very hard. And the life lesson I would say that I took away with that was I just did not know how to surrender the limitations that was so evident in me as an adoptive mom. I thought if you put your nose to the grind, you could just get through this period. And what is left out on those reports are that I did seek an attachment therapy. Her name was Connie, LCSW, who is placed in Irvine, California. And we have had dozens of sessions with this person. I requested her to write a letter. I requested her to come and testify. And again, please excuse my sequence of timeline here. And she said because of her own restrictions, she was not going to be able to do that. And in hindsight, I wish I had the energy to have fought the case more clearly, at the minimum, to get new evidence and new information. But at the end of the day, me being hardest on myself, whatever information was lacking or embellished or not true, it didn't matter to me, because whatever came my way, I deserved it. I did not go through a trial because at the time I had like I said, my older daughter was a freshman. My younger daughter, 2 years younger, was 7th grade. So they were just finishing up their 7th and 9th grade year when June, I believe it was 12th of 2014 hit. And they had already missed out on so much and so hurt about so many things. And I didn't feel like our family could go and endure a trial that I had already self-conflicted and convicted of myself. And I knew that I needed to focus on them. And I have no regrets about that, because those years were valuable, and my focus had to be on them and care for them. And I needed to see it through what and how I could help Braden, our adopted son, and that was all I could handle. That was all I could pursue at the time. Again, going back to the life lessons, and I'm just trying to weave these things in. Is during therapy, a big moment that I realized, when I was that young age, volunteering at Dillon, and still ignoring that I was an immigrant, or I was a person that was different than the mainstream. What I didn't know at the time that I came to an understanding through therapy was that there was always a desire in me to have someone save me during that time. That just wasn't enough of a reason that I should have pursued adoption. I wish I had done intense therapy to be able to recognize that that was probably not the best motive. My mother and father took care of my 3 cousins upon the death of their father. Their mother was working in Guam, my aunt. And so my mother and father always had people that they took care of, that brought them, people into the house. And I thought that was something that I should be doing as well. So combination of needing to want to pluck someone and save them, and then having this these parents who cared for those that were needy, those that were marginalized. I thought it was just my duty. That was the next thing I needed to do, and I had been so blessed. My husband and I just celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary this past May, and our 2 girls were thriving, and I had tremendous guilt regarding that from the genesis of how I came to the States. There was so many guilt that I have of not doing more, not helping, and so for all these reasons that I didn't know at the time, I thought our family was just so blessed that we wanted a child to enter our lives so that we could help. And I failed at that because I wasn't prepared for it. The learning lesson was I knew how to give and I knew how to help. I knew that these were checklists of things that I wanted to do. One thing I really did neglect was I never learned how to receive help. And I apologize if that sounds so cliche. Believe me, it pains me to say this. Also through therapy, I'm working really hard on not defining myself with the situation with Braden. And pursuing early termination is simply because I have been recommended by my supervisor, Dr. Hahn, and my therapist on numerous occasions that it is part of my journey to advocate for myself. and to go through this, because it would be easier for me to be told to add more years, because I would be too readily to accept that. For now, that's all I have to share, and I'm happy to accept questions so that it gives me directions of what you all need.
All right, thank you for that. Ms. Heim, do you have any cross-examination?
Yes, I do. But Dr. Lee, if you need a moment, just let me know. I will wait.
Thank you.
Ready?
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Dr. Lee, it sounded like during this period of time, there were some weighty things happening. So am I hearing you correctly that at the same time that you were dealing with the adoption, you were also dealing with your own medical diagnosis and chemotherapy treatments, and your husband was out of the country? Is that correct?
Yes, but it was he was only out of town for 2 weeks at that time. He was on an international trip, but that is not a normal situation where he is gone months at a time. If he does have an international trip, it's 2 weeks every 2 months. And my non-Hodgkin's lymphoma was diagnosed February of 2014.
Okay.
So I wasn't suffering with the diagnosis throughout my my adoption with Braden. He was brought into our home in June of 2011, June 12 of 2011. And that date is significant because in 2014, my parents were coming to help out. I would have stopped, had all my radiation. There would been a gap. And we were going to go celebrate his gotcha date in Hawaii as a family. And my brother and his family was going to be there. And he's local. He lives 20 minutes away. And my parents were coming and we were doing and trying our very best to integrate. And with that said, it wasn't enough. And I recognize that. So that date is a significant date in terms of the date we received him into our family and the date that irony that to the date that he left our family.
Thank you. I'm pretty certain that this answer is no, but I have to ask you, do you have any criminal convictions that the board is unaware of?
No.
And I think you also have answered this also, but I have to ask you, so you're aware of the factors that led to your discipline, it sounds like.
Yes.
And you've been working through that. So you're active as a volunteer, you said, with the Dillon International Adoption Agency still?
No, not at this point. Not at this point. My work with them is 2 parts. One was during my adoption. One thing I had bandwidth was something's wrong here. Something's wrong in our family, and I was quick to relay that to my social worker at Dillon, and then also to Jerry and Denise Dillon, who were the founders. And I said that I needed to, separate the relationship for a while, because I think I need to somehow focus on my home and my adoption. And then around that, concurrently at that time, Jerry and Denise were retiring, and new set of leaders were coming in. And I thought that was a perfect time for me to transition and still be close to Jerry and Denise and still receive their support and love. I thought it was a very good time. And then I was able to find someone for Dillon International California. That's the branch that I did initiate and start in 2006.
I see. Thank you. Thank you. So, okay. So looking at from the time that you were placed until now, can you talk to me about the support structures that you have in place for you and your family to deal with difficult situations? We're all obviously dealing with the COVID situation and it's stressful, but what are you doing right now?
I'm still going, to therapy. Frankly, that's not going to change for me. Supervision, I found in Dr. Han a level of skills that, frankly, I think I'm going to be able to learn from her for a very, very long time. With Dr. Gwen, I have no plans on stopping is all I can say. And me carrying guilt, I'm trying to be as transparent as I can be. That financially, I feel guilty about it, obviously. I have children and I do have a spouse, and whatever means extra that I have, I'd like it to be, given to them. However, the way I structure this in my mind is that to be the best, family member and to be the best therapist, my journey with therapy will never end. That's how I see it. Whether it is with Dr. Gwen, and I don't see any time that we're going to end anytime soon, but never say never. I don't say that anymore. Or I've stopped predicting or navigating my life in such a controlled way. But I don't see those things changing. And before this all took place, I had a group that I met with, a group of therapists that challenged, that kept each other accountable, case conceptualized. I will continue that twice a month. And so in that area, if I can be bold enough to say that that's not going to change for me, it is necessary in my personal life. And as long as I'm a therapist, it's going to stay intact for my professional life as well.
Thank you. You talked about your issues previously with your difficulty asking for help or accepting help. How is that working for you now?
The thing about it is, it was not that it didn't exist. My support network was always there. I just didn't know that it was support network versus me giving to them, right? They were always there. The same set of friends that I met 20 years ago in California are, I'm very lucky. Lifers. They went through everything with me. They had a revolving door to my house. They have the garage code. These are the friends that actually were the ones who were opposed to the adoption, not because they were opposed to the ideals of adoption and helping a child in need and we have room and therefore this child doesn't have a family. They love the ideas of it, but often thought that I was spread too thin. Although they quietly opposed that, my mother being one of those people as well, they were I would say my 4 pillars of ladies, strong women in my life that were there at every court proceedings. And so they were always there. So it was a matter of me seeing who they were and what they were for me and identifying that and reaching out. And I can assure you that I have no qualms about reaching out for help.
I hear that. Thank you.
At this point, it was a turf journey, but I embraced it wholeheartedly, and it's so much easier on this side.
Thank you. So I heard you say, this is, I think, all I will ask you, and then I will hand it over to the board. But I heard you say that you were encouraged to ask for early termination. So it sounds like sort of as part of your journey, but I'm curious,
Yes.
For you, have you thought about the conditions, the terms and conditions, and specifically what are things that you would like to not have to have in your life at this point?
Although the quarterly reports at this point is it's not something that causes a great deal of work. Right. At this point, in October, November, that'll go towards my 5th year. It's still very much of a trigger that I have a need to allow that to be further away from therapy and further, not my internal therapy, but my work.
Mm-hmm.
It's a situation where when I was launching my kids, my girls, the first one being harder, and I'm launching them, one of the things I've asked them to do is mute me a bit. I want, around like sophomore, junior year, I said, mute my voice. Take what's good, learn from what's bad, but yet mute me so that they could start trusting themselves and taking steps of what they already know. Right? And so I think that's probably the most impromptu answer that I can provide you, is that at this point, it would be very helpful for me to have BBS be more mute in my life so that I could take further steps of my own recovery, and trusting that when you trust me, I can start trusting myself more. And I hope I answered your question.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. I have nothing further.
All right, thank you, Ms. Heim. Let's turn it over then to the board. Mr. Disposti, any questions?
Thank you, Your Honor. Hello, Dr. Lee. How are you? I know it's been definitely difficult. It's really definitely so hard for all of us to have to revisit, and definitely this is not also the place to go back and in many instances of what happened. How do you, in relation to the work, obviously the use of your license, how, I can't even imagine how I can see how it affected you, but also I can't even imagine how difficult it has been to navigate through the affirmation of this, and then also trying to share the story with your employer, the people that you're working and living with. But that's also part of the journey, right? That's how
right.
You said it really right before. So I was surprised a little bit about the early termination, I have to be honest with you, because especially actually after your testimony and seeing how much you've been working on, I felt like, wow, trying to, end it earlier, what that really does mean to you, right? And now you will answer this. So can you tell us a little bit more about the work that you're actually doing, how this experience has affected you in relations to your clinical work, and how to work around this pressure? Because obviously a lot of the people that love you, support you, they know exactly, what happened. And if you don't mind to share a little bit more about that, that would be great.
Since 2009, I've had a thriving private practice. I because of things that I'm, going through, obviously, Dr. Hahn and I have decided that seeing 15 to 20 clients per week is enough. In the sense of it, it's enough for me with everything that I'm going through, and I'm able to provide the attention and the needs that come along with clients' needs, and so I've kept it between 15 and 20, and it's been consistent. Most of my clients are not working on a crisis type of situation. Some of my clients have been with me prior to the conviction. And each client was given, Dr. Khan and I came up with what was BBS requirements and what we felt like was filled with integrity, and what we felt like each client needed to know about me before they needed a choice to make a decision with information of what was happening in my personal life. And I feel strongly that as a therapist, I mean, although my husband was able to have his personal life be personal and his professional life to be professional. But as a therapist, I know that wasn't a luxury that I had. It was very important for some of the clients that were with me to know some parts of this information so they can make an informed decision. So that was in the early, when I got the stipulation information of October 2016. And so that was obviously very challenging because these were the clients who have trusted me, have been with me, and we're doing long-term self-growth therapy. And so then from that point on, new incoming clients was not by advertisement, and that wasn't ever my source of referral. I was very selective of who I could help. And because each person that came in, I would have to share this information or go to the board and to look thoroughly at the history and what I'm under the stipulation for, so that they can make an informed decision. Part of that process was something that I had to really think through, and each time I went through it, it was challenging. In some ways, it felt like it's just like, scratching a scab that I'm constantly working to repair. But the job that I love and want to continue to pursue, I wanted to make a person coming in, or my long-term clients that came from the past, I wanted them to be informed to the most of what a client should know. Does that answer your question? I apologize if I'm being so tangential here and not direct.
No, Dr. Lee, that was actually very, I appreciate you going so deep. I was thinking as you were answering, I say in one way, it made me realize also the fact that, I would say in other typical scenarios, someone I might have just thought about doing a completely different mission so that you didn't have to disclose and deal with that scar every single time. So I can see that your choice, that the choice that you made does expose you every single time to your clients, your people that work with you, other clinical workers, to what happens. So I definitely commend you for that. I don't have any other questions, but I do appreciate you coming here today, Dr. Lee, and sharing your story. Thank you so much.
Can I add one more piece to that, if you don't mind? Most of the time, if someone read the report and they decided not to pursue it, I wouldn't get a follow-up call, obviously. But in these two particular situations, in my heart was very heavy because it hurt for them. These two clients had heard positive things about me, and so they wanted to pursue therapy with me. And the source of referral being sensitive and kind, I'd say I'm fortunate to have very kind and compassionate clients as well. When they referred these clients, they said, you have to talk to Dr. Lee about some of the things that's going on with her, but I still highly recommend her. And so these two particular ones read the report. They called me first, they read the report, and they still wanted to make an appointment. And at that appointment, you could see them struggling with everything. that they read, and then the person in front of me. And in these two particular situations, they actually said they are not comfortable. They will no longer be coming, back and returning. That was obviously very, very painful to go through. This one particular client who is a physician, a local physician who works with CDC, and she, after 4 months, called me back and said, after deep thinking, she wanted to come back and she was very comfortable with me at that point. I hate that they struggled. I did. I hated that they had to have those, whether it's a month or 4 months, so 4 months struggle with who they saw and the backdrop of information that they read. It was very painful for me meeting them once, for anyone to go through that because of me.
Thank you again for sharing. The last thing I would like to say, as a public member myself, obviously, I do appreciate you sharing the detail about how you're protecting the public in your disclosure and what that does to you and your clients. Because I'm not a clinical worker, so I cannot get into the other dynamics, but I would say that that is, I commend you for that in relations to, I know it's also disclosures is part of the probation, so it's not just a personal choice, but
Sure.
It's sharing with us the detail and the challenges on doing so and how it reflects on you. I just appreciate to see that side of it as well. So thank you, Dr. Lee, and I'll give it back to our judge so we can move on with the rest of the board. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Disposti. Mr. Ehrlich, any questions?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Good afternoon, Dr. Lee. Have a few questions. I was wondering if, have you come to learn anything about yourself through this process that might be able to help explain the behavior that gave rise to this incident?
What I've come to realize is everyone has limits. And I would have been able to come to that sooner if I was more self-attuned to myself and my own needs. I think for myself, understanding the limitations did not mean failure. It just simply meant that I had tremendous things that I needed to work through to be able to do the daunting task of what adoption entails. The growth that has come as a result of this, it's not just because the side of my brain is so flooded right now. I simply could not put that into words of things being a blessing in disguise. And if I didn't supply you with everything you needed, could you re-ask the question?
Well, hang on one second. I'm trying to, I suppose that I'm wondering what, I understand that you had gone through a lot regarding health issues and things like that post-dated the incident. So I'm trying to figure out if during this process, while being on probation, going through the court, going through therapy, personal therapy, if you were able to work out or determine what it was that was either going on in your life, or why did this conduct occur?
There was a lot of fear, and I have a difficult time still being able to sound that I'm filling it with excuses. So if you see myself not sharing the details of it, it's because I have difficulties saying things that sound like they're excuses. So I'm going to put that aside, and I'm going to just share with you with transparency of the challenges of what all that adoption entails. Yes, I was limited, and I will continue to say that. However, it was beyond what I ever experienced. The report does not adequately show my side of it because, again, I was completely flooded, and I was willing to receive anything without it defending myself in the police reports. In 2013, my little dog, it says alleged, but I have a camera that shows that his head was twisted and he was killed. Although a dog's life does not equal to a human's life, it caused tremendous fear in how I parented from that point on. That is when I went to Connie Horniak. She's an attachment specialist. She had recommended that many parents, adoptive parents, use locks. And after the death of the dog, it was all out of fear. The report also says in a mocking way that a 5-year-old could cause harm to a possible 10 or 13-year-old. I think that's what the report says. Please excuse the age. I might not be completely accurate on the age, but it shows as if the ages that 5-year-old or the 6-year-old could do damage. And when a child is sleeping in their whole lives, they're sleeping soundly without being hypervigilant. Yes, 5 or 6-year-old could cause harm. When a 9 or 9 or 10-year-old or 11-year-old is older, when they are in alert state, there might be adequate physical strength that would prevent that. But when you are sleeping, I don't believe that is something that can be determined that a 5 or 6-year-old could not harm another child that's older. So everything wrapped around, especially from September 2013 on, was surrounded by fear and surrounded by decisions that were poor as a result of everything that was going on. And I have learned, I've learned the hard way that this all could have been prevented if I had recognized that I was in over my head beforehand. But I thought, I did not want this child to have a second mom that abandoned him. I'm so hyper-focused on that I really lost judgment of other things. I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, I think one of the things I'm trying to figure out is it mentioned in the report, and correct me if I'm wrong, that, in the work that you do, you have specialization regarding counseling adopted children and their parents with regards to kids being assimilated into their homes.
Yeah.
So why is it that you didn't seek any professional counseling for your son or for yourself, frankly, under these circumstances?
He came home in June 2011, and a Dillon social worker, and I did not know him prior to that because, again, there was a slow separation that took place. And also they placed a social worker that I did not know who it was because it would be just a very enmeshed and not a very dual relationship. So there was a social worker that came every 3 weeks for a whole year of the transition assimilation and providing, me the information just like I would have had with other adoptive families. And then beginning September of 2013, I did seek a therapist for him and for myself with Dr. Connie Horniak.
And that was 2013?
Yes, but for a whole year from June 2011 to June 2012, a Dillon social worker would come and assist us in the transition. From June 2012 to September 13th, yes, I neglected that. And that, you're right, there is no excuse. And that's why this is so hard, because I should have known better. But I can only assure you that when you're in that position, I understand that in a person in that position, that's where the limitation exists. And I wish I had known that and was aware of it so that I could fight for help then.
Just have a couple more questions. If somebody came into your office now and sat down and basically described the type of either conduct that was going on similar to your situation or feelings they had regarding maybe acting on conduct that was similar to that, or issues that they observed with their adopted child, how would you counsel them?
Going back to the limitations, I do not work anything close or near adoption. And I don't want you to take it as,
even if it was their own child, how would you counsel that person?
If anything, I've gone the opposite way where it is with, I am not ashamed at this point of sharing my story. So if that situation was to come with self-divulging when necessary, when it's important, not to, just to let you know about me, I'm not one to self-divulge unnecessarily. But in this particular situation, if there was a situation similar to mine, I would self-divulge my situation so that I could be some kind of source of help for them, not to ever cross any boundaries and seek for help. And if I'm out of the scope practice of being able to help them, referring and diligently finding a network.
Okay. Did you complete any form of rehabilitation or treatment that was not ordered by either the board or the court, criminal court?
Treatment in the sense of like EMDR, things like that, or are you talking education or?
I suppose anything that arose out of these circumstances, anything that you chose to do to rehabilitate yourself or to address maybe underlying issues with how the conduct occurred. Did you do anything on your own that was not mandated by the board or the criminal court?
What I did was I go to a weekly support group through a church. It's not my church, but a local church that does celebrate recovery. And it's any type of form of recovery. And that's what I have engaged in. It's usually, depending on which program it is, mine ended up being a 12-week program, but I still go on a, it's stopped since COVID, the in-person, but in terms of that recovery group, I attended the 12-week program, and then I still continue to go, and it's every Monday, and I have missed very few.
And when did you start that?
That was before I started therapy a year before the BBS stipulation, not because of the court, but because I knew at that point when I was alarmed to awake that was something I needed to pursue. So I believe it was October. I can get that information to you if you need, but I believe it was October 2014, because June was when the court thing all hit and I needed to go into some type of recovery.
Okay. Okay. I have no other further questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ehrlich. Ms. Friedman, any questions?
Yes. Hi, Dr. Lee. I appreciate your being here. I know how difficult this must be for you to relive all of this again. You're very highly educated, but I'm wondering if you thought about doing this application, because one of the things that you've been working on in therapy is that you need to learn to advocate for yourself. Does that feed into why you decided to do this application?
That's a large part of my therapeutic process of what was recommended. Obviously, no one pushed me to do this, but this is not easy, as you could imagine. And as you state, it would be easier for me to just go through that 1 year, because everything is a bit pretty perfunctory in terms of the letters, and I'm not going to stop supervision. As I stated earlier, I'm not stopping therapy. I see this as a lifelong journey. As long as I'm going to do therapy and help others, I need to make sure I'm in the right place. So nothing's going to change per se. So it would have been easier for me to just let next October, November go by and be lifted naturally. But because of me needing to learn how to ask, me continuing to learn to advocate for myself, that's a large part of what I'm trying to do here. Because it would be truly easier to just let this 1 year go by and allow it to just kind of, organically work itself through. And my girls that are 19 and one will be 22 in a few days, they are, I'm their champion and they are my champion. And I told them this situation. We're quite communicative as a family of four, my husband being equally communicative. And I was going through back and forth ever since Dr. Irwin proposed this a year ago. Dr. Hahn and Dr. Irwin proposed it a year ago, and I was going back and forth with it. So it comes with a great amount of thought. And my girls were like, yes, do it, Mom, fight for it. And, they made a pie, and we're going to celebrate that tonight. All I did today, and in terms of advocating for myself, and whatever the outcome, I'm one to accept it. But I wanted to pursue it for myself, but also be that role model for my girls as well.
What kind of pie? Do you know what kind of pie?
Oh, it's raspberry rhubarb pie.
Sounds
raspberries is, I love that sweet and tart. So.
Sounds wonderful. I hope you enjoy it. That's all I have. I don't have any.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Friedman. Mr. Jones, any questions?
Yes, I have a couple of questions. Dr. Lee, looking at your education, you have quite a few degrees in clinical psychology, educational counseling, so marriage and family therapy, all of your specializations. With all of your training and all of the background that you have, I'm confused as to how you made those parenting decisions with your adopted son. So as we're tasked with consumer protection, my question is, when you are under duress or stress with your clients, how are we supposed to guarantee the public that you are going to make different decisions for them when we have a history of egregious behavior with someone who has a tremendous amount of education and training? Please help me understand that.
Dr. Lee, this is ALJ Gavin. Pardon my interruption, and Mr. Jones, please pardon me for stepping on your question. I saw that we lost the video feed for one of our board members for a moment, and I just wanted to make sure. I see now she's back, so no need for me to interrupt and make sure we get her back. Dr. Lee, you can go ahead with your answer.
That's a question I ask constantly during my supervision and during my therapy, and the incongruence. I'm just not going to ever quite get to that place where I'm going to find answers to suffice my own self. That the road to forgiveness is going to be one that's very long for my own self. I just want you to sincerely know that that's a question I ask myself. How is it that a person who lived with what's right and wrong and wanting to do good and wanting to do well by this child, how did this happen? And with humility, all I can say is that there's a breaking point, I realize, for everyone. It just was a bad one for me because it involved a child. And I don't think I can give you an answer for that one. All I can assure you that it's just an uncharacteristic of me. I don't want to be arrogant enough to say that nothing ever has happened with my clients or anything of ill advice with my clients towards my clients. I have never intentionally or breached boundaries. That's all I can say, is that the two are separate, but it's a question I ask all the time to myself, that how can a person of what I learned and what I did to volunteer all those years, how could that happen other than that it did? And I wish it hadn't, but I am going to take every precaution. Like I said, therapy is not a choice for me with myself. As long as I'm a therapist, I'm going to go, weekly. That doesn't change. Supervision does not change. Like I said to you, what I have found in Dr. Han is someone that I can learn from for many, many, many years to come. And if not her, it'll be someone else in my group. Those accountability, those factors, I hope will provide some consolation of protection against, the present and prospective, clients that I encounter.
Thank you. No more questions, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jones. We've been going just under an hour and a half, and I'd like to just take a brief break for our court reporter and just to make sure that the people are fresh. We have 3 more board members, I realize, for questioning, but if it's all right with you, Mr. Desposi, I would like maybe a 10 or 15-minute break for our reporter. You're muted, Mr. Desposi.
I just realized that. Yes, absolutely. We can go now. I couldn't hear because there was some interruption in the video. You are asking for a break, right? Because we're just, yeah.
I think for the reporter, it's been just under an hour and a half. I think we should take a brief break.
Yeah, we can do 10 minutes break and reconvene at 3:40.
Okay, we're off the record.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Good. Welcome back, everyone. It's 3:40 p.m., September 11, 2020. The Board of Behavioral Sciences is reconvening right now for our discussion on our open session. My name is Max Disposti. I'm the board chair for the Board of Behavioral Sciences, and I'll give the floor to our administrative law judge, Mr. Kevin.
All right, thank you, Chairman Disposti. Ms. Mendoza, are you ready to go back on the record?
Yes.
And Ms. Heim, are you ready to go back on the record?
Yes.
Dr. Lee, are you ready to go back on the record?
Yes.
And Mr. Sovek, you'll be up next for questioning. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right, we are back on the record after that brief break. Thank you for that. Mr. Jones, we concluded your questioning, and I see you nodding. Mr. Sovek, we're ready for you to begin questioning of Dr. Lee.
Thank you. Hello, Dr. Lee, and welcome back. Are you hearing me?
Hello. Yeah. Yes, I have to switch the gallery because I can't see everyone. So when I don't see the person speaking, then I have to switch it around. So.
Okay, good. Hey, so the first thing I want to talk to you about is I noticed that you had a 52-week care program, correct?
Yes.
Yes. The program and maybe the took away from it.
Okay, I'm sorry, I did not hear that. I was fine before the break, but it seems like my internet's working okay. I'm not sure why I didn't hear your question.
Am I coming through clear now?
It's spotty. Can you ask everyone else if they can hear you? It might be me, and I might have to move then.
Actually, I was having a problem myself, John.
Okay.
For a second, I missed your question as well. I don't know if it's
a little bit glitchy.
Yeah.
Okay, because I have a clear signal on this end. I've got all of you coming through clearly.
Yeah, but you have a metallic voice right now, so obviously you have a problem with connection, even though we can hear you at the moment.
Oh no, that's just my voice these days.
Okay.
I've had a lot of clients this week.
I think you're good now.
So let's try this again, Dr. Lee. You did a 52-week care program, and I wanted to know, you learned from that program, what would you say are the biggest things you took away from it?
The biggest thing I believe, I mean, it wasn't something that I didn't cover during a master's program or my educational program. I mean, these are things that, you get to the point of the level of, the education, something that you have learned and should be able to teach others. The overwhelming understanding that I got from that is anyone under extreme duress, whether it is in my situation, specifically involving adoption and overwhelming challenges that come with an older adoption, we all need support network, and we all need to be there to support each other, to lean on each other, and no matter what socioeconomic status you're at, no matter what place you are in life, or no matter, in my case, the amount of education that I should have, there's shoulds there that I place on myself. And that's why we have therapists, and that's why we have people to help us through those times. And that is my biggest lesson. No matter how much education I have, that shouldn't be the reason you don't seek help, right? I mean, you lean on that and thinking, oh, I have this, I should be able to do that. I know better. But when you're in that kind of circumstances, one shouldn't lean on that, but to lean on help. And that's what I took away, that no matter where or what place you're in your life, we have to lean on those that are professional or a lay leader or anyone that can be of support to help you through that. And if you are not self-attuned enough to be aware of what's going on, that someone would be able to highlight that. so nothing like that would ever happen.
Any specific techniques that you may have learned in the program to you if you got in an overwhelming situation in the future?
Again, my situation of parenting my biological children has never been in question. You know, if you all would like, I mean, I could bring them in, you know, for them to chat with you all if you need. They're really good human beings, and I think I can partake in that. You know, they are their own people. But what I did learn is through that program, is anyone can be so overwhelmed enough to do something that you ordinarily would not. And that is a tremendously and humbling acknowledgement that I make. And I'm not saying this to the board, you know, I'm saying it to myself that under duress, specifically my situation, although I can easily say to you, I don't plan on adopting, I don't plan on being an adoption liaison or adoption worker that involves that, but in any kind of overwhelming situation, whether non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, one of the major things that happen is it is one of the easier cancer to treat, but it has a way of it coming back. And so when that comeback happens, and if that happens, I know to make sure that I am more supported, so that under a overwhelming situation that I don't do anything that would be out of character for me.
Okay.
I hope if you need to ask further questions for a clearer answer, please do so.
I think what I'm trying to explore with you is, yes, care is based on child care, but it's also based on giving us tools to be aware of our own emotional situations when we get in overwhelm. So I know, you know, looking through it, they have moments where they're looking at, you know, imago techniques, looking at communication techniques, looking at anger control, looking at how to identify distorted thinking, that there's lots of tool-based stuff that happens in a 52-week program. And I'm trying to find specifically not about raising your children. I'm not bringing that into question at this moment, but you as a therapist, as a person walking through the world, suddenly slammed by something overwhelming again. Did from that program, 52 weeks long, did you take away any specific techniques that would help you to manage overwhelm to make better decisions in the future?
I think I got parts of your question. Again, it's cutting in and out, so my apologies for that. It's again, I hope it's not just on my line. What I think I got from you is, you know, to talk about specific techniques. I'm doing all those techniques actively. I'm going to therapy, you know, to continue to explore and make sure that I'm not ever at that place. I, you know, continue to go to supervision for my clients. I continue that, you know, replenishing and fulfilling of myself in order to not be at that place. So a lot of what I've learned is preventative and never taking for granted any situation. I want to be aware and vigilant so that that doesn't happen. And aside from any tools outside of that it was a unique situation, all I can assure you is that all I can do is do my self-assessment every single day and move, you know, and make sure that it doesn't, I prevent it from the, you know, the get-go.
Okay. What do you particularly specialize in working with?
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand you.
What population do you specialize in working with?
The population I work with is couples and individual, individual cases that come with interpersonal conflicts to begin with. But ultimately, the work that they do is self-growth. So it has to do with becoming more aware, so the person lives life more intentionally and less reactive. That's the goal. So that's the population whom I work with.
Does that mean that the restriction of not working with anyone under the age of 18 does not affect your ability to make income and have a successful practice?
Prior to the stipulation, I would say 50% of my clientele were working with children and families. And so in the very beginning, it took a huge, toll in my, me as a practitioner and my clientele population. But within this past, 3 years, within the first year, I was able to recover in terms of the number of clientele being organized towards adults and individual or couples counseling.
Okay, thank you so much. I have no further questions.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Silvex. Ms. Strack, any questions?
Yeah, just one. I wanted to follow up on some of Board Member Sovic's questions about the restricted practice. Once you're off probation, is that something that you intend to maintain, or is your previous client population something you intend to go back to?
You know what? I thought about this a lot because at first when this all took place, obviously, me being hardest on myself, I had self-doubt to begin with. And with any kind of self-doubt, you shouldn't, pursue something that you haven't already really thoroughly, analyzed within myself. And I'm comfortable where I'm at. And so I'm not saying that eventually that I would pursue later adolescence, but I'm comfortable where I am now. And so I would not pursue working with children or adolescents for quite a while. And that's just my personal choice and my own personal growth and my own confidence that I want to build first before I tackle working with families or children or yeah.
Thank you. And I know it's been long and emotional, and thank you for being here and for being really just open and transparent with us. I appreciate
Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Strack. And Ms. Wong, any questions?
I don't have question, but I do want to say something. I can't miss the chance. So anyway, so Dr. Lee, thank you so much for, for bearing with us for this really long process. And I want to thank you, for taking, the chance, to really share your story. So I want to just point out, some very positive thing, and so that that I do recognize that the efforts that you have put in, and so I do believe that you have come a very, very long way, and and you raised two beautiful children, who are valedictorian, so and they wrote two very beautiful letters to support you. So I think that. I have no doubt, that your biological family, it's just, really wonderful. And you guys are very close-knit. So in terms of, being a therapist, I do want to give you a reminder. What the board has been looking for, really it's about, how healthy, the level of your health, your healthiness in terms of practice. And I see, the Dr. Lee in front of us today, who continued this path of recovery. And it seems to me that, you regain some of the strength back, and yet, there's still, I think what's really hanging up, is, what I think that the place where it's hung up to really accept the situation, the mistake that you make. And so, and I could still feel that, that you're bearing a lot of pain. So I really want to encourage you to really continue this process, to continue the self-growth. Nobody want to, go through cancer and all the life stressors, and yet as a therapist, our well-being, will directly, affect, how we do therapy. And that's where we come from. It's that we really want you to be healthy enough that, you're able to deal with, all the stress also coming from the clients.
Sure.
So, that's really all I want to say.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Honor, I have no more questions.
All right, thank you, Ms. Wong. At this point, I'll open it up to any other board members who have any follow-up questions. Seeing none. Ms. Heim, any follow-up questions?
No, I do not have any other follow-up questions. Thank you.
Dr. Lee, is there anything you'd like to add to your testimony at this point?
Sure, I'll just add a few sentences, and it's really directed to Mr. Jones and Mr. Eric. The question you asked, you have this lengthy education. How could I? All I can do to advocate for myself is that the road to adoption and adopting of an older child was a tremendous challenge. And although I should have known better, that is the key to my healing was that even though I should have known better, people like myself make mistakes. And through those mistakes, I have experienced a lot of recovery, and I can assure you all with confidence that my clients are better for me going through this process, because I have become more understanding, compassionate, that people can make mistakes, that it is okay for Rachel Lee to make mistakes. And it's through the rehabilitation, through compassion, kindness, and self-forgiveness that provides a platform for my clientele clients to come and be in an environment that's safe. And although that may sound contradictory of this one situation in my life, I want you to know my whole process has been very sincere and transparent, and my rehabilitation will be ongoing, and whether BBS is involved or not involved, it'll be ongoing because it is in the best interest of myself, my family, but most importantly for the consumers that you are all here for as well. That's it.
All right, thank you for that, Dr. Lee. At this point, because there was additional testimony, let me see if there are any additional questions from board members. All right, seeing none, Ms. Heim, any follow-up?
All right, Judge, I do have a question.
Go ahead, Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Dr. Lee, for that. I understand that you described the situation as a poor decision. I see it more as a pattern of behavior. If it had happened one time, I think that would be, we'd be in a different situation. So I think that my question was more about, with such a pattern of behavior that went on for such a long time, how is it that we are supposed to guarantee that pattern is not going to return when you are under duress?
Pattern of behavior. Can you describe or give me the examples of which pattern of behavior?
Well, this wasn't a one-time incident that we're talking about. This was months and months of abuse that went on, and through, I mean, I'm a parent. We're many of us on the board are parents, and so I think that we understand that parenting is the hardest job in the world, and I'm an educated person myself, and I know that I've not always made the best parenting decisions, and I'm not going to try to pretend that to walk in your shoes and understand completely the situation that you're in, but I also understand as an educated person that there comes a point where you have to make a different decision. And so the record indicates that this was not a one-time incident. This was a pattern of behavior. And so my question is more about that was a decision that you made over and over and over again when you had the skill set, the knowledge, and the resources to do something different. So my question was how, if you are under similar duress, are you going to be able to make different decisions with your clients so that we can ensure public safety?
That good question. I do have biological children, and I have never parented that way. All I can assure you is that if adopting an older child was more than I could handle, and it wasn't a series of behavior, it was one situation that I will continue to rehabilitate on that because it's unfathomable for me. And as I could tell by you, there's a lot of emotions that you're projecting to me about this parenting and how, with judgment of how I can do that. And sir, you don't have to judge me. I judge myself for that. So you look for series of behavior. You didn't have a dog that was suffocated and his neck twisted and died. You didn't have a little boy coming and whether he could do harm or not with a pillow over the heads of my children. There was a lot of fear. And then concurrently, there was a diagnosis that took place. And no, I should have known better. I agree. I agree with you, but no, sir, it's not a series of behavior. And no, sir, I will never make any decisions that would injure my clients. How do I know that? How can I assure you that? Because it's never happened to me outside of any other situation in my world, in my existence. It was this older adoption. And I have learned to come to a place where I need to learn to forgive myself. Am I there yet? I don't think I'll ever be there. But it wasn't a series of behavior, sir. It was an isolated situation, and we can go fight towards the semantics of it. But I have received enough judgment from the court and from everyone else, and I'm receiving that from you, and you're entitled to what you're processing right now, and I will accept any of the decisions that you all make. But all I know is that I'm a better therapist for it because I lived a life with dot your I's, cross your T's, and putting your nose to the grind and pursuing, and living in an environment where it was densely populated with me being the only Asian and all that comes with it. It was in good that I adopted. It was in good place of my heart that I wanted to pursue a child in need. And with good deeds, I wasn't prepared. I wish I was. I wish I didn't get cancer. I wish a lot of things that didn't take place, but never has any of my behaviors ever surrounded my biological children, my husband of 25 years, or friends, or my clients.
Any additional questions, Mr. Jones?
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
All right. Any other board members have any questions to follow up?
No.
All right. Ms. Heim, I've asked a number of times, but I'll ask again. Any follow-up questions for you?
No, thank you.
All right. Dr. Lee, that then concludes your testimony. As I said at the outset, you also have the right to call additional witnesses or present additional documents if you'd like to do that. You mentioned earlier, you said something like, if the board members want to hear from your daughters, procedurally, it's up to you whether to call a witness or not. The board doesn't decide which witnesses to hear from. So if you have additional witnesses to call, you may do that. If not, then we'll go to closing argument. So I would.
No, it's fine. I'm pretty comfortable where I'm at and understand at this point, so.
Okay, all right. That then concludes the testimony and evidence component of the hearing, and we'll move to closing argument. Ms. Heim, do you have any closing remarks to make?
No, I do not. Thank you.
All right. Dr. Lee, would you like to make a closing argument?
No.
All right. Then in a moment, I'm going to ask whether the matter is submitted. And by that, I mean, are you satisfied you've had a full opportunity to present all evidence and make all argument on your behalf? Ms. Heim, is the matter submitted?
Yes, submitted.
And Dr. Lee, is the matter submitted?
Yes.
All right, and the matter is submitted. The case is closed and we are off the record.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this point, that concludes the session of our petition hearing for the day. That means that this call will adjourn on a future date, and we're moving to a closed session. The future date for the board, I believe, is, maybe Kim can help me with that. I know it's in October.
Yes.
Just for the record.
It is, our next petition hearing will be October 8th.
October 8th. Thank you, Kim, just for the record. And we're moving now in closed session. That means the members of the public had to log out, and we are reconvening with board members in, oh, I missed my time.
No, you're good.
No. Before that happens, I'm sorry to interrupt. I want to give the reporter a chance to ask whether she needs any spellings. I think there were maybe a couple of doctors' names that were not spelled on the record.
Yes, the first name was Connie, of a doctor that you mentioned, Miss Lee.
It's not a doctor, it's a LCSW, Connie Horniak.
Can you spell that last name for me, please?
Hornyak.
Hornyak.
Yes.
Thank you. And then the spelling of Braden?
Should that be included? Because I think it's redacted from the court record, so I didn't want.
The name that was used on the record is the name that you should spell.
Okay, I'm not sure what's on the record. I thought that all his information was redacted for his privacy. I don't know how that works.
Yeah, the original first amended accusation refers to the minor child by the name Brandon, Branden, and indicates in a footnote that that is a fictitious name used to protect the privacy of the minor son. So we don't need to know his true name, but the name that you use, Branden, would be the spelling for the reporter.
So, Your Honor, if she said Braden on the record, would I just switch that out if a transcript is requested?
Yes, please.
Thank you. I'll make a note of that. That was all.
Okay, and then did you have a time and a page estimate?
Sure. The time was 4:06, and I have an estimate of 57 pages.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Lee, that concludes your portion of the hearing today. In a closed session, we can't have members of the public, so I'll have to ask you to end your video.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Yep.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We are going to move into a closed session. Just for the public record, the adjournments will not be broadcasted after the closed session.
Oh, you're muted.
Someone muted me. We will go, just to repeat for the record, we are going to go into a closed session. The adjournments thereafter will not be broadcasted. And that will conclude the session for the board today on September 11th. We re-adjourn on the same channel. Let's take 10 minutes break. Is that okay? Okay. We are going to adjourn at 4:20 here. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, Max. So Max, I'm turning over the controls of the meeting to Christina.